Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and we finally got access to the patch 11.17 over on the PTR with a bunch of new features, so many new transmogs, so many new mounts for players to be able to collect as part of this update, massive catch-ups with huge rewards from Turbulent Timeway. However, for today's video, I just wanted to focus in on one of the big and yet also controversial features coming out as part of this update, and that is two major features. One of them is a rotation helper, which takes your class and tries to guide you as to which abilities you should be using as part of your DPS rotation. Whether you're building resources or how to spend them, it'll try to account for different procs, some of the smaller cooldowns that you will use rotationally, and will try to guide you in terms of how to play the class in a very bare bones basic way. But surprisingly, it's actually quite robust as it can adjust to things like AoE content and even talent changes. Then there's also another part of it, a little bit more controversial, but essentially it's a one-button rotation macro where a player can keybind it and then spam it, that same key, in order to execute the class's full rotation, although which comes with a massive penalty when it comes to competitive content, so you're probably not going to see it in some of the more difficult high-end content, though two features combined together could potentially be a new way for players to be able to learn a class through some of the in-game built-in systems without having to reference outside guides or even videos in order to at least start playing their class through an in-game UI feature, which is fairly exciting. And I wanted to dive into this feature in detail to try to make sure to dispel some of those concerns regarding this feature, but also to show off exactly how it functions and how it performs for a variety of different popular class choices. As always, if you guys want to see more updates for the patch 11.17, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe, but otherwise, let's dive right in. So here we are, patch 11.17 and the rotation helper, but also the one-button macro are both in, and we could finally go and test them out. Though when you look at the advanced options, instead of being called a rotation helper, it is right now called assisted highlight. But right now on the tin, it reads, enables the highlights that suggest the next spell to cast, or that suggest the spell to cast. The assisted highlights will only suggest visible spells, so you want to make sure all your bars, all your abilities are on your bars before you start using them. So it is something that where you do need to make sure your bars are filled with all the right abilities. So as I send my pets in, add the train dummy, and I start attacking it, you can actually see it starts to highlight some of my basic combat abilities, like my Bestial Wrath. I press it, now it tries to highlight Kill Command into my Barb Shot, another Barb Shot because I have no kill commands, and right now I think it's trying to highlight a Cobra Shot, but it's not really doing a great job of it. Like I said, there's a bit of a bug right now on the PTR in terms of how things function, but you can see it actually is telling me which abilities I should use. And if I want to switch my pets over, let's say from single target to AoE, immediately switch that focus to multi-shot to try to get my Beast Cleave buff up so my pets can start cleaving multiple targets. As a Beast Cleave is about to fall off, it actually recommends me to use Beast Cleave and then it reminds me to use Bestial Wrath whenever possible. And it also tried to get me to use Barb Shot to get me through 3 stacks of Frenzy when it can, and when I don't need to maintain any other buffs, it just tells me to press Kill Command as much as possible. So this thing does actually help you with your rotation a little. It is not really, right now it should be highlighting things like my Cobra Shot because I do have the Hawk Shot above where Cobra Shot can cleave multiple targets, but right now the visuals just aren't really applying for all abilities as consistently. I think this is mostly because I don't have class abilities in my spellbook, so it doesn't really know what to do when it just sees Aspect, Turtle, Aspect Cheetah, Biting Shot, and Cold Pet, and then a bunch of Survival Hunter abilities on here. Yeah, it just doesn't really know what to do. In the add-on right now is, or this feature, is bugging out a little bit, but it is at least trying, at least making an attempt to somewhat functionally work. And it does give you like reminders of when to refresh certain buffs. It does give you suggestions of what abilities you should be using next. So that is very, very exciting, to be honest. I got to test the feature on a couple of classes, and right now if you really just want to see how it like tries to change your rotation based on like your situation, based on your encounter, if you just queue for follower dungeons and just do like, I don't know, any of the big AoE dungeons right now, Priory, Brewery, you'll see how it changes the rotation in single target or AoE, and it does try to make a lot of these combat suggestions on the fly at the same time, which is really, really cool. It definitely is buggy right now because it just doesn't have access to a spellbook, though not for every class. Some classes it actually works fine, like Boomkins for example, Feral Druids, it apparently works kind of okay for them, but it is bugging out a little bit. It's doing some weird things here and there for a few classes, but at least it's attempting, and when it does work, it does recommend you the right buttons to press, so it is somewhat of a learning tool to a degree, and it plays your class in a very, very basic of ways. Now, then there's the other counterpart of this whole feature, and that is the, if I can bring it up, one button macro. Yeah, stuff is broken completely on PTR, but we have the single button assistant, which casts a rotation of damage and abilities for you to use in combat, pulling from the abilities that would be in the highlight helper, like the assisted highlights feature. So whatever abilities it will be highlighting, those will also go into the single button assistant, allowing you just to press this button, which is like a thing you can put on your keybinds, and it'll actually just use the abilities that the highlights would normally suggest. Like you'll see Bestial Wrath popping up, and you'll see like which abilities it's constantly highlighting for me as I get into combat, and I'll just spam one button, and you can just kind of see what buttons it changes to, what it highlights them, and they kind of highlight and change together in unison. So it basically uses that highlight feature, but at a much slower pace. If you read the tooltip, this button, the abilities used through the single button assistant or a one button macro, these will incur additional 0.3 second global cooldown. This is a noticeable change because it basically slows down your rotation quite heavily. Definitely a controversial little addition. It still feels a little surreal to just press a single keystroke and it automates a good portion of your gameplay. I did give a couple of classes a try to see how it affects them and whether it feels better or worse, and I had a mixed experience with a lot of the different classes I got to test. Starting with the spec of Outlaw, I normally would do specs like Assassination instead because I know a lot more people play Assass, but it is actually broken. It does not work right now. But you'll kind of get an idea of how Outlaw Rogue plays at the very least. So if I start from stealth, it actually does recommend me the right ability, which is my Ghost Strike. For some reason in the opener though, it makes me want to use Killing Spree instead though, so it's not really good adjustment for things like my subterfuge windows, but as I'm pressing the ability, it does do okay, and it actually does a pretty good job of building and spending combo points, and it actually does so efficiently. Pistol shots, ambushes, and will actually send those cool combo points a little bit earlier for my finishers. Normally as a rogue you want to fill out your combo points almost to the max, like maybe 6 or 7 combo points before you send it into a finisher. However, sometimes it's fine to be at 5 combo points and use that finisher if, let's say, your pistol shot is glowing, which means it'll generate more combo points, or if you get an ambush proc, which means it's also going to generate your combo points. And this one button macro makes adjustments for that. It is actually crazy to me. So as cool as this feature is, it is definitely pretty not optimal when it comes to playing an Outlaw Rogue. Right now, the basic way to describe rogues is we're trying to use the ability of Killing Spree as often as humanly possible. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, just spamming this one rotation button, it's pretty bad at it. Like, it's so slow compared to how fast-paced Outlaw Rogue normally is. It's giving me the right buttons, but it's just super sluggish about it, like really, really badly. But if, let's say, I stop using it altogether and I just end up using my own abilities myself, right? I'm no longer using the actual one button macro. I'm actually pressing the buttons myself. You can see the pace at which my Killing Spree is coming back off cooldown, and I can use it so much more aggressively. There are little things you can do as Outlaw Rogue in order to increase the effectiveness of your combo point builders and spenders, which is something that a player is going to be able to do, but this button cannot. So if I were to like look at this, and if you're a brand new player to Rogue trying to get better at it, I would not recommend this thing whatsoever. But if you're just like super casual and just want to start pressing buttons and just feel like a piratey rogue, but you don't really care about doing good damage, it's fine. To be fair, it does press the right buttons, it just does it so slowly, there's no way you'll be able to make it realistically work really anywhere. Now I also want to test out a couple of different specs. Another one I really want to try is the Balance Droid. So I'm actually just going to drag it over, place it here. Oh, look at that. Hold on. Boomkin's spellbook isn't broken. Some partially. Okay, no, it is partially broken. But they do have a lot more spells than I had on my rogue, so maybe this thing will actually kind of work. Now, I do want to set it up. Look, it is just for AoE. I do want to just try hitting stuff in AoE for this thing to see how robust it is. I just want to find out what it tries to do when you play Balance Druid, which is arguably one of the more popular specs in the game right now, especially when it comes to Mythic Plus. So it is changing into my Eclipse for AoE. It is recommending Starfall, and it's spamming it. Oh, it actually even uses things like Warrior of Elude. That's actually so good. Look at the resources, and you know what? It's actually, honestly, it's probably better at managing that resource than I am at the moment. It isn't spreading moonfires on multiple targets, however, so that's going to be a little bit more of like a personal choice of like how to adjust your dots on multiple targets. I'm actually kind of surprised, kind of impressed to some degree. This thing actually does work. Like if you're a boomkin, or if you see a druid doing Starfall, casting it on every target, I mean, it's more or less playing like how a normal boomkin would. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're playing a balanced druid and you're doing a dungeon, you know how boomkins sometimes tend to overpull too many mobs at times? With this playstyle, overpull too many mobs, and I think, yeah, this one button could probably overpull a handful of mobs, not what you were meaning to pull at all. But it is playing the class correctly, slower, but surprisingly correctly. Now, I do want to see what it's going to do with the Feral Druid. Like, is it actually going to maintain all of my bleeds as I place it over on my bars? Because I guess I don't really need Convoke. I do wonder if it'll press Convoke. I am going to start with Thrash just so it knows that I'm AoEing. And it looks like it does. Adjusted for 3 targets. So, I want to see what abilities it's going to use next. Building Calm Points. Okay, it is going to put bleeds on targets. That's good. Oh, but it doesn't really do a good job of pressing Convoke, however. So let's say just press Convoke for it, which I guess Convoke in a sense already plays the class for you as a druid, so this will be the best class to just have like abilities to play your character for you. I actually wonder if that's going to go in AoE. Let me switch to multiple targets here. I want to see if I do tap targeting, if it'll try to put Rake on multiple targets, and it'll try to prioritize that as best as it can. Okay, so put up some bleeds. I'm going to switch target. It is going to try to Rake a new target. Oh, that is cool. Actually, genuinely kind of cool. Feels smooth. I know it's definitely not doing peak damage. I mean, that letting the bleeds fall off like that isn't ideal, but when you're locked down to a slower DCD, there's only so much you're going to be able to do with it. Now, I want to test a couple more characters, Archmage being one of them. It is a very, very popular spec that's become my recent obsession. I actually want to see how it ends up playing, because right now it's a lot of fun, and it just cranks out so many barrages. I want to see if this macro can actually keep up with it. So I'm just going to do the same thing and just spam it as much as I can. Actually, I probably should just give myself like all the buffs in the world, right? Let me get it started. Let me get the actual rotation rolling. Wait, you just touching the Magi? I didn't even notice it just touching the Magi so aggressively, without even me setting something up. Oh, but it's actually not great at setting barrages when you get the proc, so that needs to be worked on. But yeah, this feels a lot slower than normal Arcane Mage. But if you're new to the spec, actually, I don't even know if you need this one, but macro play in Arcane. The difficulty of cooldowns, however, with that spec is still going to be persistent. But yeah, this thing may not work. But you can see, I'm playing Arcane Mage. I'm barraging, I'm getting orbs, which is more or less how the spec is meant to be played, to be honest. But this makes me wonder how this thing is going to work for a Frost Mage specifically. I'm actually just going to start it with some cooldowns as well. Oh, and I guess I should make sure that my mouse is also over the target. Oh, wait, it just kind of canceled its, canceled the buff just now. That's weird. But hey, if anything, it is spamming blizzards. It's spamming a bunch of AoE buttons almost near constantly. So at the very least, it is pressing the correct buttons. I don't really know if it can really do the whole shadow combo with flurries of frost. Yeah, no, it actually is just casting flurries naturally. Normally as a frost mage, what you do is you queue up at a frost bolt or a glacial spike into a flurry and then a couple of lances to follow. But because of the GCD, it's actually skipping the queue up. So it is going to result in less damage, but I guess it's functionally playable. As you can see, I'm hitting AoE mobs. So it is kind of sort of playing it more or less how it's supposed to. Just definitely not like optimally like a human being could. From there, I kind of wanted to move on to Elemental Shaman, just because also another fun one out there. I am going to, like with the others, prime it with some buffs ahead of time and maybe go Ascendance. It is still going to cast Stormkeeper, however, huh? Wait, do I have an Earthquake that casts it on the target, or did I do it automatically? Hold on a second. Wait, it'll just... Wait, it just changes my Earthquake to just cast on the target instead? Whoa, there's some targeting stuff with this thing. Hold on a second. That is wild. Normally, that's a mouse over thing for me for Earthquake, but it just targets it onto the target instead. So it like defaults to a variation like this version of Earthquake instead of this one? That is weird. Okay, I mean, it is spamming right abilities, Chain Lightning, Tempest. It is making sure to spam my Maelstrom pretty aggressively. Although, I don't think it knows that I'm running Echoes of Great Sundering, does it? Normally with Ele Shaman, you would try to like Ele Blast or Earth Shock, and then you would Earthquake in order to amp it, but it's ignoring it completely. Okay, so this thing definitely is a little wacky, let's be honest. It is very, very wacky. I mean, I guess it's doing damage, but yeah, it definitely is not adjusting for all the talents, it seems. But if you're just getting a bunch of Ascendance procs and just Earthquake spam and bunch of Lightning Bolts, I mean, who am I to blow against the wind? Like, if this is someone's fun, just spamming it, it kind of sort of works. Last, I wanted to test it on a tank and a healer, because I just wanted to see if this one button thing will throw out defenses as a protection warrior or heals as a healer, but for some reason, I don't know why I thought it would be more sophisticated than that. All this button does is just a button for you to spam DPS. It'll send offensive cooldowns, it'll generate your resources, and it will just do damage for you as a protection warrior, but at a very sluggish pace. So you're generating less rage, which means less cooldown reduction, and it's far from optimal. I'm actually really not a fan of it on tanks just because of it's so sluggish, and tanks being so, like, you are a pretty big role in a party of dungeon groups or raids or whatever. You need a good uptime on your resources to get cooldowns, to get all the things, to get the mitigation going. And I guess it's an okay rule to at least teach you how to press your buttons to do damage, but it definitely isn't going to teach you how to use any of your defenses whatsoever. I don't really know how I feel about this one. So I don't even know what I expected for healers. It actually is even dumber on healers pretty badly. It is not only very sluggish, so Holy Paladin generating holy power, it takes an eternity. It doesn't even know how to spam it either. It doesn't realize that I have a Holy Shock or Shield of the Righteous or anything like that. So it seems to be primarily a DPS button for DPS roles. Maybe tanks might be able to get some use out of it, but yeah, definitely mixed feelings on this one. Lastly, I also did want to mention this is a controversial feature that's coming out, and I think it is definitely a really weird, really out of the blue feature. I don't think anyone expected for Blizz to be putting out a rotation helper, but also like a automatic rotation button ability. There's a lot of concerns in the community regarding, is this potentially going to inspire more bots? And definitely it could, but I'm pretty sure a lot of players that use bots already run scripts that automate a lot of things for the bots, like running, interactions, mounting, movement, and abilities. So I think tools like that technically already exist, so it's not Blizzard really adding tools that are easier for bots, since people that bot probably already have something even more sophisticated than this. I do hope that the addition of this doesn't make the botting problem worse. I don't think it should, but definitely I'm not a fan of bots either. I definitely understand the concern, but I really do think anybody that's botting probably has something that's much better than this. In fact, this feature, I mean, the rotation that it offers you is very sluggish. This thing is not feeling competitive at all. And in fact, if you wanted more competitive stuff, like an actual one-button rotation macro, there's add-ons that have existed for a while that literally let you do this already. It's just like a sequence of macros that players have constructed together, and these add-ons are active right now. I'm not really going to mention them here, but they've been around since at least 2014. Players have been using them, and there's a good chance you've done a dungeon or even a raid with somebody that might have been like top 3 DPS that was literally pressing one button. Stuff like this have existed for a while, and players could easily just download it and add on and then start using it immediately. So we've had tools that are actually better than this, that have been around in the game for a while, easily accessible through just a download of an add-on. So I don't really think and hope that this addition is going to ruin the game and make it worse. If anything, I'm hoping that maybe it'll just have some sort of positive impact somewhere, like as a learning tool, because I think it showing you like what abilities you should be pressing on your class, like the very bare bones variation of it. I imagine a brand new player would probably find it kind of useful. Having some kind of like a building block to start at, I think it's good, and having something like this in game, probably, you know, we should have probably had this for a while now, maybe through like a quest line or some sort of like a series of scenarios you could play out where it teaches you to play your character, teaches you how to play the bare bones of your class. I would have preferred that a little bit better so you could actually pitch your buttons, but this at least is a nice way to kind of bridge that gap a little. But right now as it stands, definitely you're not going to be seeing this thing in competitive environments at all. I'd be surprised unless they end up improving on this greatly and removing that GCD lock all the way. I don't think we're going to be seeing this thing anytime soon. It would need to be much better than it currently does, because I've seen some of the early sims and they look abysmally low. So it might just be a fun thing to get yourself playing the class, but definitely doesn't look like a best slot feature by any measure, at least for the time being.